Oh, I'd have thought that she'd have told you that she could have made it to your party, but she mustn't have thought that you'd have noticed. Whoa, slow down. Let's look at some of those words again. First of all, there are 3 modal verbs you need to know, which are in the past tense, and these are could have, would have, and should have. These are sometimes called modal verbs of lost opportunity because they're all about possibilities in the past. It's too late now. Could have means that something was possible in the past, but it did not happen. For example, I could have gone to university. I could have studied harder. Would have means you wanted to do something, but for some reason you were not able to, or you just didn't do it. And that reason usually forms the second part of the sentence. For example, I would have driven to work, but my car was broken. Oh, if I had known you were coming, I would have cooked dinner, but I didn't know. Should have means you wish something had happened. It was the correct thing to do, but you did not do it. For example, I should have told you how I felt. I should have listened to my mum's advice. Could have, should have, and would have are often shortened by using contractions. So they become could have, would have, and should have. Dove. Could have, would have, should have. I could have gone to university. I could have studied harder. I would have driven to work, but my car was broken. If I'd known you were coming, I would have cooked dinner. I should have told you how I felt. I should have listened to my mum's advice. These contractions are used more often than not in conversation by native English speakers. They are easier and quicker to say, and they don't change the meaning. However, when we write them down, which we rarely do, you should avoid using them in formal situations. So when contractions are written, we put an apostrophe in place of the missing letter to show that it has been shortened. A good example of this is on the clock, which is shortened to o'clock when we talk about time. So notice how the apostrophe sits in the place of the letters that we have removed. This is the same for the word not, which is often contracted into unt. We put the apostrophe in the place of the missing O. And have, which is often contracted to of, with an apostrophe in place of the missing HA. And did, which is contracted to just the last letter D, with an apostrophe in the place of the missing DI. Now to form the negative, the word not goes in between the main verb and have. So they become could not have, would not have, and should not have. And this is where the double contraction comes in. We already know that would not can be shortened to wouldn't, and would have can be shortened to would have. So what about when we want to shorten would not have? Let's listen very closely to the endings of wouldn't and would've. Wouldn't, would've. Notice how the emphasis is on would and how the nt and the of sort of just trail off. They're not very strong. Now we need to pull all of those sounds together to make wouldn't have, wouldn't have, wouldn't have, wouldn't have. So think about the word wooden. A wooden chair, a wooden table, wooden, and then just add tov, wouldn't have. I wouldn't have done that. And then try couldn't have, couldn't have, couldn't, wouldn't, couldn't, have. And then try shouldn't have, shouldn't have, wouldn't have, couldn't have, shouldn't have. We can also use the modal verbs must have and might have using the same pattern. So we have must have and might have. As negatives, they are must not have and might not have, which are contracted to diddle-a-diddle-a-duh, mustn't have and mightn't have. Mustn't have, mightn't have. Mustn't have, mightn't have. Have you got it? The same goes for cannot have, which is shortened to can't have. Can't have. Can't have. Would have is the only one of these verbs which can be contracted further in its positive form. I would becomes I'd. So I would have becomes I'd have, I'd have, I'd have, I'd have. You can apply that rule to any pronoun followed by would have. So I'd have, you'd have, he'd have, she'd have, they'd have, we'd have. Okay, so with I'd have, you'd have, he'd have, she'd have, they'd have, we'd have, and couldn't have, wouldn't have, shouldn't have, mightn't have, must have, mustn't have, and can't have, that's 12 double contractions all squeezed into one lesson. But how many can you remember? Now, here's your test. I'm going to use each one of these in a sentence, just in a random order. And I'd like you to answer each sentence with the 3 words that make up that contraction. So if I say, I wish I'd have locked the door, you're going to answer with, I would have. Okay, because that's the 3 words in the contraction I'd have. I wish I'd have locked the door. So that's your task, okay? So after each sentence, pause the video so you can write down your answer with the number of the sentence, and then I'll tell you the correct answer at the end. Are you ready? Number 1. We'd have picked you up on our way home if we had known you needed a lift. Number 2. I wish I'd have baked a cake. Number 3. Jennifer mightn't have taken part in the competition if her knee hadn't healed. Number 4. They'd have laughed at me if I'd tried to sing. Number 5. He can't have babysat and driven you to the airport. He's not Superman. Number 6. You'd have regretted it if you had said no. Number 7. Are you crazy? They couldn't have committed that crime. Number 8. I mustn't have turned off the oven. Number 9. I'm certain he'd have wanted you to have this heirloom. Number 10. Aw, you shouldn't have gone to so much effort. Number 11. It's a shame your mother isn't here. She'd have been very proud of you. Number 12. We wouldn't have wanted to keep you waiting. Okay, did you get them all? Let's look at those answers. Number 1. We'd have picked you up on our way home if we had known you needed a lift. The contraction was we'd have, which should be we would have. Did you get that right? Number 2. I wish I'd have baked a cake. The contraction was I'd have, and that represents I would have. Number 3. Jennifer mightn't have taken part in the competition if her knee hadn't healed. The contraction there is mightn't have, and that represents might not have. Number 4, they'd have laughed at me if I'd tried to sing. The double contraction there is they'd have, and that represents they would have. Number 5, he can't have babysat and driven you to the airport. He's not Superman. The double contraction there is can't have, and that represents cannot have. Okay, the next one, number 6, was you'd have regretted it if you had said no. The double contraction there is you'd have, which represents you would have. The next one, number 7, are you crazy? They couldn't have committed that crime. The double contraction, couldn't have, which represents could not have. Number 8, I mustn't have turned off the oven. The double contraction, mustn't have, represents must not have. Number 9, I'm certain he'd have wanted you to have this heirloom. The double contraction here is he'd have, representing he would have. Number 10, you shouldn't have gone to so much effort. The double contraction, shouldn't have, representing should not have. Number 11, it's a shame your mother isn't here. She'd have been very proud of you. The double contraction, she'd have, and that represents she would have. And finally, number 12, we wouldn't have wanted to keep you waiting. The double contraction here is wouldn't have, representing would not have. Fantastic! Did you get them all right? Let me know in the comment section below. If you're really interested in improving your pronunciation, then you might want to check out my pronunciation course on englishlikeanative.com. Alternatively, you might want to check out this playlist of pronunciation videos right here on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, and I'll see you in the next lesson.